Welcome back to Sleepy Chronicles. I am so glad you could join us tonight as we prepare to drift away into the rhythmic, dusty corners of the past. Before we begin our journey, I want you to take a moment for yourself. Adjust your pillows, pull the blanket up to your chin, and find that perfect, weightless position where your muscles can finally let go. Dim the lights, perhaps turn on a soft fan for a gentle hum, and let the outside world fade into a distant memory. Tonight, we are embarking on a multi-part odyssey through the boring but fascinating layers of history. We will start in the blistering heat of the medieval forge, walking in the soot-stained footsteps of the blacksmith. From there, our journey will evolve into the secret laboratories of ancient alchemists seeking the soul of matter. Lead us deep underground into the silent, labyrinthine cities of Cappadocia. And finally, we will rest in the sacred, prophetic dream temples of the ancient world. It is a story of transformation, of metal, of earth, and of the human spirit. If you find peace in these stories, please take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps us keep the forge fires burning here at Sleepy Chronicles. Now, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let's travel back to a world made of iron and ash. Part 1. The rhythms of iron and ash. We begin in a small, smoke-stained shed at the edge of a medieval village. Long before the sun considers rising, the air here is already heavy with the scent of scorched wool and old coal. This is the world of the blacksmith, a man who does not wear a crown or carry a shield into battle. Yet without him, the entire medieval machine would grind to a halt. To be a blacksmith was not a choice. It was a lineage, a weight passed down through generations like a heavy, rusted heirloom. Imagine being born into this. Your first memories aren't of playing in the green fields, but of the orange glow of the hearth reflecting in your father's soot-streaked eyes. By the age of 6, while other children are chasing chickens, you are already an apprentice. In the polite language of the Middle Ages, this means you are a tiny, unpaid assistant with permanent blisters and lungs that have already begun a lifelong, toxic relationship with smoke. Your toys are tongs. Your playground is a dirt floor next to a furnace hot enough to singe your eyebrows if you lean in too close. The forge is a living creature. It is a temperamental, hungry beast that demands to be fed constantly. You learn its language through your senses. You hear the wheeze of the bellows, the great lungs, as they pump life into the coals. You hear the sharp, rhythmic clang of the hammer on the anvil, a sound that will eventually ring in your ears long after you've tried to fall asleep. You learn to judge the heat of the iron not by a thermometer, but by the subtle shifts in color. A dull red for basic shaping, a bright cherry for more intricate work, and a terrifying, sparkling white that warns you the metal is on the verge of vanishing into sparks. Your father is the master of this beast. He is a man of few words, his vocabulary mostly consisting of grunts and the repetitive command to hit it harder. His hands are like tree bark, scarred and thickened by decades of surprise burns and flying shards of metal. He teaches you the boring reality of the craft, the making of nails. Thousands upon thousands of nails. Each one must be heated, tapered, headed, and cut over and over until your arms feel like lead and your back begins to take on the permanent hunch of the anvil itself. It is a symphony of repetition. By your teenage years, the forge has reshaped you. You are no longer just a boy. You are an extension of the fire and steel. Your skin has darkened from the smoke, and your clothes, the same leather apron and tunic you wear every single day, smell of grease and desperation. You have learned the art of customer service in a world of entitlement. The knight demands a sword that will never blunt. The farmer brings a broken plow and offers 3 onions as payment. The baker's oven door is jammed, and he needs it fixed now. You are the village's tech support, its mechanic, and its artist, all rolled into one exhausted figure. There is a strange, quiet dignity in this exhaustion. When the shape finally comes out right, when the horseshoe fits perfectly, or the gate hinge swings without a whisper, you feel a momentary flash of pride. You are a creator. You are the silent spark that turns raw ore into progress. But the moment always passes. The fire roars again. Another order arrives, and the cycle continues. Your body is being hardened like the metal you work, tempered by heat and pressure, growing stooped and stiff before you've even reached adulthood. As you stand there in the flickering light, watching the sparks fly majestically through the air, you realize that the blacksmith is the foundation of everything. The knight's armor, the farmer's plow, the church's bell, they all passed through your hands. You are forging civilization, one hammer blow at a time. But as the iron glows and the smoke rises, a deeper question begins to stir in the back of your mind. If a man can change the shape of iron with fire and will, what else can be transformed? Is it only metal that bends, Or can the very essence of the world be altered? This quiet curiosity, born in the heat of the medieval forge, is the same spark that would eventually lead men away from the anvil and toward the mysterious crucibles of alchemy, the search for a different kind of gold. But for now, the hammer must fall. Clang, hiss, clang. Sleep now, listener, as the fire in the forge begins to dim, and the rhythm of the hammer becomes the rhythm of your breathing. We will continue our journey into the secrets of transformation in the next chapter. For now, just rest, as the heavy rhythm of the blacksmith's hammer fades into a distant echo. We find ourselves leaving the smoke-stained sheds of the medieval village behind. The air grows warmer, drier, and carries the scent of ancient dust and river reeds. We are traveling back, far beyond the iron tools and the knight's armor, to a time when transformation was not just a job, but a divine secret whispered under a different sky, long before alchemy was associated with secretive laboratories and robed mystics in Europe. It belonged to the shimmering heat of ancient Egypt. The Egyptians had a word for this sacred art, chemia, derived from chem, which literally meant the Black Land. This wasn't just a name for their geography. It referred to the dark, fertile soil left behind by the annual flooding of the Nile. To the ancient mind, this blackness was not a sign of dirt or waste, but the color of absolute potential, the richness of raw matter waiting to be transformed into life. Imagine standing on the banks of the Nile at night, the water a dark mirror for the stars above. Here, alchemy was everywhere. It was in the simple act of baking bread and brewing beer, where raw grains turned into nourishment through the magic of fermentation and fire. But it reached its most sacred peak in the ritual of mummification. This was the ultimate alchemical act, taking the physical body of the dead and carefully preserving, transfiguring, and preparing it for eternity. To the Egyptians, you could not change something outwardly without first understanding it inwardly. Transformation was the very language of the gods. In the shadows of the great temples, it was believed that these secrets were guarded by a divine figure, Thoth. He was the ibis-headed god of wisdom, magic, and time, the sacred scribe who held the equilibrium of the universe in his hands. Legend says that Thoth did not just teach alchemy, he embodied it. He was said to have authored thousands of books filled with hidden truths, most of which were never meant for mortal eyes. However, one fragment of his wisdom survived the centuries, etched into the bones of civilization: the Emerald Tablet, said to be inscribed on a slab of green crystal or glowing emerald stone. The tablet was brief, barely a dozen lines long, yet it held a riddle that would haunt thinkers for thousands of years. It began with a principle that bridged the gap between the earth and the stars. That which is above is like that which is below, and that which is below is like that which is above. This simple idea, the principle of correspondence, suggested that the entire universe was a mirror. What happened in the heavens, the movement of the planets, and the birth of stars echoed within the human soul. The lab of the alchemist was merely a smaller version of the cosmos. The emerald tablet did not provide recipes for gold. It offered a worldview. It whispered that nothing in this world is fixed. Everything can be refined, elevated, and transmuted. It wasn't just about turning lead into gold. It was about turning ignorance into wisdom, and the mortal into the divine. This sacred science of life required more than just intelligence. It required the heart of a seeker. You had to earn this knowledge through discipline and a willingness to be transformed yourself. As the golden age of Egypt eventually began to fade, these ideas did not vanish into the desert sands. They were too powerful to be lost. Carried by scribes, mystics, and conquerors along the ancient trade routes, the torch of alchemy began to migrate. It traveled east into the heart of the Persian Empire, where it would encounter a new kind of fire. In Persia, the spiritual roots of Egypt blended with the dualities of light and darkness. Fire became more than just a tool for the forge. It became a sacred element representing divine wisdom, burning in temples and lighting the crucibles of early philosophers. It was here that a Greek-Egyptian mystic named Zosimos of Panopolis began to give alchemy its first true voice. Zosimos did not see alchemy as a series of chemical notes. He wrote of visionary journeys where he saw himself being broken down, burned, and purified in an alchemical furnace. This was the symbolic death of the self. He taught that the alchemist must suffer the same trials as the metal. Matter must be broken before it can become gold, and the soul must be purified before it can touch the divine. His writings were filled with strange, haunting symbols. Lions devouring serpents and men melting into colored vapors, metaphors for the long, difficult journey toward perfection. The embers of this ancient knowledge continued to flicker, passing from Egypt to Persia, and eventually into the hands of the great scholars of the Islamic Golden Age. In cities like Baghdad and Cairo, alchemy would finally become a structured system, a method, and a science, led by geniuses like Jabir ibn Hayyan. But for now, let the image of the Nile and the glow of the emerald tablet linger in your mind. The transformation has only just begun. As we drift further into the night, the secrets of the laboratory wait for us in the next chapter of our journey. Sleep now, surrounded by the quiet potential of the Black Land, and let your dreams be the mirror of the stars. Good night, as the golden age of Egypt and the visions of Sissimos faded into the desert sands. The torch of alchemy passed into the hands of a new empire. Between the 8th and 13th centuries, while Europe remained cloaked in superstition, the Islamic world became a sanctuary for wisdom. At the heart of this revival in Baghdad stood Jabir ibn Hayyan, often called the father of chemistry. He transformed alchemy from a mystical pursuit into a structured, testable discipline. In his laboratory, he introduced methods still used today, such as distillation, crystallization, and sublimation, refining acids and inventing new instruments. Yet, Jabir never abandoned the spiritual roots of the craft. He believed in the concept of mizan, or balance. To him, gold was not just a metal, but matter in a state of perfect equilibrium. And every physical transformation in his laboratory mirrored a deeper transformation within the soul. Knowledge, however, is too powerful to be contained by borders. This Persian genius's work eventually traveled west, smuggled through the ink of translators in cities like Toledo and Cordoba. By the 12th century, European monks and scholars were secretly decoding these Arabic manuscripts, breathing life back into forgotten ideas. What they found was a fusion of spirit and matter that ignited a cultural detonation. This was the era of the great work, or the magnum opus. In hidden chambers, European minds became obsessed with one legendary object, the Philosopher's Stone. This stone was more than a chemical substance. It was a mystery wrapped in allegory. It was believed to have the power to turn lead into gold and grant the elixir of life. To the true alchemist, lead was simply immature gold, and the universe was a living organism constantly striving toward perfection. The journey to create the stone followed a strict, symbolic path. Negrito, the blackening, which represented the death of the ego, albedo, the whitening and purification. Citrinitas, the yellowing or illumination. And finally rubido, the reddening, signaling the birth of the unified self. Because these ideas challenged the fixed order of the church, alchemy slipped into the shadows. Alchemists began to speak in green language, a secret code of wordplay, puns, and cryptic images of lions devouring serpents, meant only for the initiated. They formed secret societies like the Rosicrucians, claiming to hold ancient wisdom passed down from Egypt. By the 17th century, a slow transformation occurred. The mysticism of alchemy began to shed its skin, giving birth to modern chemistry. Scholars like Robert Boyle argued that matter was made of atoms, stripping away the mystical forces. Anton Lavoisier eventually disproved the ancient theory of the four elements, and the laboratory became a secular temple of data rather than spirit. Yet, alchemy did not truly die. It simply evolved. Carl Jung later argued that the ancient alchemists were unconsciously mapping the human psyche, and that the search for the philosopher's stone was actually the process of becoming a whole, unified human being. But as we leave the flickering candles of the laboratory, we find that the human desire to seek refuge and transformation takes other, more literal forms. While the alchemist hid his thoughts in code, others were hiding their entire lives in stone. We move now to the surreal landscape of Cappadocia in central Turkey. Above ground, the world is dotted with towering stone fairy chimneys and rippling ridges carved by wind and volcanic ash. It looks like a dream, but the real wonder lies beneath the feet of the travelers. Deep under this volcanic earth is a forgotten labyrinth, a world beneath a world. These are not makeshift caves, but entire subterranean cities stretching for miles, featuring residences, chapels, wells, and even schools. Some complexes descend as far as 18 stories deep, capable of housing thousands of people in total silence. Like the secrets of the alchemists, these cities were forgotten by time until the mid-20th century. In 1963, a man in the town of Derinkuyu was renovating his basement when he knocked down a wall. Behind it, he found a tunnel. That tunnel led to another, then to a chamber, then to a spiral staircase descending into the dark. He had accidentally uncovered an ancient civilization that had chosen to vanish into the earth. This region, made of soft volcanic tuff, invited the same kind of transformation we saw in the forge and the lab, not of metal, but of the very landscape itself. The air in these tunnels is cool and steady, far removed from the scorching summers and freezing winters above. As we walk deeper into the stone heart of Derinkuyu, we begin to see the incredible engineering required to survive in the dark. Massive rolling stone doors, shaped like millstones, could seal off corridors from the inside, making them nearly impossible to force open from the outside. Ventilation shafts snaked upward for 50 meters, pulling fresh air to the deepest levels without the need for fans or electricity. The city was built around natural aquifers, ensuring that even under siege, the residents had water. Every design choice, every narrow corridor, and every hidden escape route points to a society built for long-term habitation under extreme threat. But who were they hiding from? And what kind of life did they lead in a place where the sun never rises? To understand the magnitude of Derinkuyu, we must imagine the sheer silence that settled over 20,000 people living deep within the rock. This was not a temporary camp. It was a masterpiece of subterranean engineering, carved from soft, porous volcanic tuff. The city functioned as a living, breathing organism with a specialized purpose for every level. Living quarters were kept closer to the surface for quick access to the outside world, while the deeper levels housed communal kitchens, workshops, and livestock pens. One of the most remarkable features was the ventilation system. Long vertical shafts, some over 50 meters deep, that allowed fresh air to circulate through 18 underground stories without the need for any modern technology. Water was pulled from natural aquifers via wells that were often sealed from the surface to prevent invaders from poisoning the supply. For defense, the architects utilized massive rolling stone doors, round slabs that could be moved only from the inside, sealing off tunnels with a precision that made them look like part of the natural wall. To any pursuer, daily life in this sunless world was a carefully structured routine of communal survival. In the flickering light of dozens of oil lamps, families gathered in multi-room compartments. Kitchens on the lower levels managed smoke through clever vents, and the scent of freshly baked bread from clay ovens would mix with the damp, earthy smell of the stone. They did not just hide, they thrived, carving out churches with intricate frescoes, mission schools with study rooms, and even communal wine and oil presses. Livestock like sheep and goats were kept in dedicated pens near the entrances, providing both food and a secondary source of warmth for the inhabitants. These cities were not isolated islands of safety. Beneath the Anatolian countryside lay a vast network of secret tunnels connecting separate settlements. A single winding tunnel, nearly 9 kilometers long, is believed to have linked the cities of Derinkuyu and Kamakli, allowing for a coordinated subterranean federation. These passages were intentionally designed with bottlenecks and blind turns to trap any intruder who dared enter, yet the central mystery remains. Who were they hiding from with such desperate intensity? While history points to Christian communities fleeing Roman or Arab raids, the deepest levels of these cities may date back 4,000 years to the Hittite Empire. Some theories suggest the builders were escaping natural cataclysms, such as volcanic winters or solar events. More unsettling legends speak of sky gods or destroyers with burning eyes, suggesting the stone doors were meant to hide humanity from a threat that hunted from the heavens. To live in Cappadocia was to live with intention, turning the earth into a fortress, a second sky, and a sanctuary for the soul. For months at a time, thousands of people existed in a world where the only light came from fire, and the only sound was the low hum of community and prayer. In this absolute darkness, separated from the cycles of day and night, the residents of the underground had to rely on a different kind of vision. When the eyes can no longer see the world above, the mind turns inward. In the silence of the stone, sleep became the only bridge back to the light. This transition from the physical protection of the earth leads us to the final layer of our journey. To the ancient mind, sleep was not merely rest. It was an entryway into a deeper reality. As the people of Cappadocia closed their eyes in the dark, they joined a long lineage of civilizations that viewed the dream state as a sacred portal. We move now from the silence of the tunnels to the sacred dream temples of the old world, where sleep was the language of the soul. To the ancient world, sleep was not a simple escape from the physical weight of reality. Instead, it was viewed as a sacred entryway into something far deeper and more significant. Dreams were never dismissed as random figments of the imagination or mental noise. They were considered direct messages, prophecies, and often terrifying communications from gods or spirits. In the quiet, vulnerable hours of the night, the porous boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds grew thin, allowing the divine to whisper or roar truths that could shape the fate of a king or an entire city. The first civilization to leave written records of these nighttime journeys was the Sumerians, who lived in Mesopotamia over 5,000 years ago. They did not view dreams as illusions. They saw them as transmissions from the divine that carried immense consequences. Sumerian kings relied heavily on trained court dream interpreters who deciphered these symbols to guide political and military decisions. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the world's oldest literary works, both Gilgamesh and his companion Enkidu experience vivid dreams of celestial battles and collapsing mountains, which were interpreted as sacred guidance or divine warnings. The Sumerians even practiced a ritual known as incubation, sleeping in special temple chambers to intentionally invite visions from the gods. To them, ignoring a dream was to risk the wrath of the heavens. In ancient Egypt, sleep was considered a rehearsal for death, and dreams were pathways to the gods and the afterlife. The Egyptians believed the soul, or Ka, would leave the body during sleep to travel to other realms, returning with encounters or messages. They were so committed to understanding these symbols that they created the Ramesside dream book around 1300 BCE, a papyrus scroll listing over 100 dream symbols and their interpretations. For example, seeing oneself eating crocodile flesh predicted gaining power over enemies, while drinking warm beer was a warning of impending sorrow. Like the Sumerians, the Egyptians used temples for dream incubation, hoping to receive healing or divine sanction for a pharaoh's rule. The Greeks expanded this into a form of sacred medicine. Healing temples known as Asclepions, dedicated to the god Asclepius, were built across the Mediterranean. Pilgrims would fast, pray, and offer sacrifices before sleeping inside these sanctuaries. In these healing dreams, the god himself was said to appear, diagnosing illnesses or even performing dream surgeries. These experiences were so profound that temple walls were often covered with inscriptions from people thanking the gods for miraculous recoveries. Beyond medicine, the Greeks pondered the psychology of sleep. Homer spoke of two gates of dreams, a gate of horn, from which true dreams emerge, and a gate of ivory, which sends forth lies. Across all these cultures, dreams were puzzles rich with coded language. Symbols were rarely literal. A snake might signify transformation, while falling teeth might hint at death in the family. Artemidorus of Daldes, a 2nd century interpreter, wrote a 5-volume manual called the Onira Critica, stressing that the context of the dreamer's life, their profession and status, mattered more than the symbol itself. This ancient world believed that in the silence of the night, when the soul loosened its grip on the body, it could touch the divine mind and glimpse the hidden threads of fate today. We often treat dreams as fleeting fragments of memory or neurological byproducts. The sacred has become clinical, and the symbolic has been reduced to chemical impulses. Yet, the legacy of the alchemist, the blacksmith, and the subterranean builder still lingers in the way we search for meaning in our own internal darkness. What the ancients understood and what we still feel in moments of deep intuition is that the dream world is not separate from life. It is a mirror reflecting the eternal dance between matter and spirit. As we reach the end of this journey through the boring but profound layers of history, the forge fire has finally turned to ash. The laboratory is silent, and the heavy stone doors of the underground cities have been sealed against the night. We return to the most ancient sanctuary of all, the quiet of your own mind. Thank you for listening to this odyssey on Sleepy Chronicles. If these stories of iron, stone, and stars have helped you find your way toward rest, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Your support keeps the fire of these stories alive for seekers everywhere now. Let the noise of the world fade completely. Close your eyes and listen to the stillness that the Sumerians, Egyptians, and Greeks respected so deeply. You are not just resting. You are opening a door. Sleep now, good night.